of benchmarking, why on earth we should be doing it, what we can do to help our clients, how we can monetize it, and so on. Now, I think we understand as accountants the importance of benchmarking because we can compare how we're performing, whereabouts we fit on the percentiles. We're used to that with all the exams and so on that we've been through, and we need to get into that top 50 percentile and not below. So it's common, very, very common to us with regards to benchmarking. But how do we get that across to our small business clients and get them to understand what's going on? Now, we'll ask a question shortly as we go through the agenda. And I think that you might find that clients are more interested in this than you may well realize. So before we get into that, let's just have a look at who clarity benchmarking is actually for. Now, if you are a sole practitioner and you have a bunch of clients that you want to work with, but you're working either on your own or with a small team, then clarity benchmarking is definitely for you to be able to help your clients understand where they're going and then help you add those additional services to your accounting firm. Similarly, if you're a multi-partnered firm, each partner is going to want access, or their client list to have access to clarity benchmarking so that they can get exactly the same thing done, but get to really understand and fine-tune what's going on with your clients. Senior managers, those that are responsible for client lists, so some firms are structured slightly differently. If you are a senior manager, you're going to want this as well, so that you can build deeper and better relationships with your clients, actually give a reason for going out to speak with them, instead of just asking for accounts and tax return information or records for bookkeeping and so on. If you're part of the leadership team of a large accounting firm, again, you're going to want to know this, and you're most likely going to want to do this for your offices as well and benchmark your firm against each office within your practice. So important to be able to understand that, because this isn't just for your clients, it's also for the firm too. Any team members that aren't part of that, again, it's going to enable you to put one foot in front of the other when contacting the client and being able to build a conversation with them. So it's a nice in to be able to show how the client's performing and what they can potentially do to improve. And if you have just started up a firm or are thinking about starting up a firm, this will allow you to jump ahead and really jump the curve on the existing accounting firms out there and get your name out there for your particular niche so that you can move forward in the right way. So in other words, if you're not doing clarity benchmarking, then you need to have a look at doing it, because everybody should be doing benchmarking to help their clients understand how they're doing and where they can get to. We're going to go through the agenda shortly, but Ainsley's just going to share a few success stories so far of what some of our members have been up to.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Now, obviously, clarity benchmarking is really new, but we've had some members that are already chomping ahead with what they're up to. And I think as some of the things we'll talk to you, and today is really a relaxed event. I just need to reiterate that. So for those that are on the call, please just interrupt, jump in. If you've got questions that you want to answer, just please get in touch. Just ask questions. You can either drop it in the chat or you can just unmute and interrupt us. You're not going to put us off. So this event is really for the people who've shown up and to make sure that we get your questions answered and we answer them in the right way. There's many more that have joined for the recording, and they're just going to have to go with our agenda and yours, the questions that you want to ask. So unfortunately, they don't get to drive this agenda going forward. So just a quick brief intro to some people that are doing some great things. Now, Paul Miller, he sent out 10 benchmarking reports and generated 10 meetings. He did have to follow up, I think it was about 3 or 4 of them on the phone, but the rest just booked a meeting. Paul had sent out a simplified report, so he had trimmed it back. And effectively, there was just one call to action, which was call to book your meeting to go through this in more detail. So I think 6 or 7 of them booked straight away, and 3 he had to follow up to get meetings in the diary. So that's how engaged his clients were with his benchmarking report. Now, Paul's been a member of Clarity for a while, and he's been approaching people in different ways. He's done events, he's done a simple clarity reports, etc., etc. But this sending out those 10 really generated really rapid and fast responses, and as you can see, 100% success rate. So it's been really good for him to be able to connect with his clients and engage with his clients. And I think that's the thing, right? We'll get into this. People want to know how they compare. It's just human nature to want to know where you stand, how you compare to your peers. And so I think it was really interesting. I heard Vipul tell us a story about when he offered benchmarking way back in the day. And his client used to wander around with his benchmarking report in his briefcase because he was so proud of the results in that benchmarking report. So do bear in mind that we get numbers, we're accountants, we understand numbers in their entirety. We understand probably how the client's performing without even looking too deeply at the set of accounts. We can understand that, but they don't really get their numbers. So this is a great way to engage them, a great way to get them interested in their numbers, asking questions, saying, why is this and why is that? So a really interesting way that Paul managed to engage his clients. So again, it's the power of taking action. I know we probably say this over and over again at Clarity, action generates results. So this was certainly clearly the power of taking action and getting going. Talking, and Steve talked at the top of the call about startups. So Steve Reed from Arthur Francis is a startup effectively, and he felt that Clarity was something he wanted to get into. It was probably too deep to get into the business advisory at this point in time because he was as a startup, he probably didn't have a huge number of clients that he felt comfortable to be able to go straight in with Clarity. So he joined as a benchmarking member, and he added Solo. So he added a Solo package, which gave him one clean license and one that he could use for demoing. And he sent out one of his reports to one of the clients that he thought would be interested in business advisory, or interested at least in their numbers. And by sending out that one report, he generated that one meeting. So again, 100%, both people have had 100% success on their meetings. Obviously, 1-for-1 is probably quite a low statistical benchmark, but let's just go with it at 100% success. And at that meeting, the client was so interested in talking about his numbers and where he was now and where he could get to, and really position that next question. So that's where I am now. So how do I make changes, and what impact is that going to have on my business? And again, he used his Solo license to be able to demonstrate that clearly on screen to his client. And he sold that client up for an accountability package, but he didn't realize that that client had another business that wasn't with Steve. And the client was a bigger business, and he wanted to use a Clarity planning package for that as the business. So he got two sales from effectively one meeting. If you don't know what we're talking about, Clarity planning and Clarity accountability, don't worry about it. It's just productized service offerings that he was able to off the shelf offer to his clients, and they were excited at getting moving forward. So again, great success from just sending out, for a startup, sending out one report. Now we switch gears to a pretty large firm. So this is multi-office firm, significant number of partners. It's I think it used to be in the top 30 when it had its rural section as part of the offering. So it used to be top 30 in the UK. I think it's probably now 40 or 50. I can't remember, Steve.
Top 45.
Top 45. So it's a pretty reasonable accounting firm with a lot of revenue, a lot of clients. And they've been using Clarity and are using Clarity to scale up across their advisory division. But what Phil, who is the managing partner or CEO of Old Mill, found was that he thought this was a great way of delivering value to his compliance-only clients. Now, they've got some big targets that they want to hit over the next 5 years, 20% growth rate per annum across, for a large firm. That's quite spicy. It's not like it's a small, nimble firm that can move quickly. So they've got pretty aggressive growth targets for the next 5 years. And what he felt was that if they've done a rubbish job with a client, now they don't obviously do it often, but sometimes it happens. We all know it happens. Then he felt that by sending out a benchmarking report, it was going to be as a thank you. So sorry, we've goofed. Here's a benchmarking report. It's of great value to you. We hope you find it interesting. And of course, if you've got any questions, just ask us. So he felt from that perspective, it was a great way of trying to ease the issues and challenges that they have with inevitably with some files, and how to overcome that. And as a thank you, being a valued customer, you've been around for a while, we really wanted to give you some extra value, and here's your benchmarking report, and it will help you understand where you can get to. Now you'll see that the detailed benchmarking report that's already included within Clarity, you can edit that completely, and you can save it as multiple versions, and you can save it as niches, you can strip out some content. But he wanted to send out the full one because he felt it really gave some extra value to the client in suggesting ways that they could improve if they wanted to just do it on their own. So great for clients that maybe weren't, were unhappy for whatever reason, and it's a great way of helping them maybe claw back that client. He also felt that for clients who were really interested in this sort of thing, it was a great thing to do. Now, we discussed with Old Mill about how the process would work and adding it to the workflows, and felt that sending it 2 weeks after the year-end accounts was probably the best time to send out this report. So probably bills gone out, final accounts have been approved, all done and dusted, all that nitty-gritty with accounts and tax, tax bills and director's tax returns and who's paying what when and all that sort of mumbo jumbo dealt with and out of the way. And then as a clear thank you with this time separation, sending out that report and saying, oh, we thought you might find this of interest and of value. So it was 2 months after the year end. And he felt for those that were really interested in their numbers, this really gave them an extra add-in to be able to contact Old Mill and say, look, guys, we're really interested in this. We'd love to have a chat with you. So a great way for those that were interested. And then for the neutrals, he felt, again, it was really interesting because some would get really excited by it. Those that they probably hadn't thought were interested in business advisor or their extra services. So let's get them interested. And for those that weren't, well, at least, again, it was a good way to say thank you for being a customer. And we certainly, and we'll get into this conversation because I'm sure some of you will have those questions, which is if you're about to introduce a price increase, because let's bear in mind, most people haven't had price increases over the last 4 or 5 years because of COVID. If you're thinking about introducing a price increase, including the benchmarking report as a value add as part of that price increase is a really good way to not justify the increase, but to take the sting out of the tail of that price increase. So lots of things you can do to create value that don't cost you a lot of money, bundle them in so that you can explain what you're doing for the additional fees, not just here's an increase like Netflix or anybody else sends us out. Spotify, your fees going up. Oh, and oh God, and I had forgotten, Sharon had just done that very same thing. So she had some increases to do. She's part of our elite accounting group. So that's where we all meet every 2 months face to face and every month in between for an accountability session. And it's all about making the firm a success firm-wide, not just about business advisory. Sharon was talking for quite a while about price increases, and again was obviously naturally apprehensive about just upping the prices. So she's used Clarity benchmarking as part of the process to demonstrate the value of working with them and why it's important that they continue working with them for that additional fee revenue. So hopefully those short stories have given you an idea of what people are doing at the moment. We will get into the nitty-gritty. We will talk about how some people are charging up to £1,800 for a set of account for a benchmarking report. So Aussie dollars, that's 3,600, and if you're in the US, that's approximately 250-ish. Just plucking some simple exchange rates out of the top of my head. But how some people are charging for it, how some people are just using it to generate meetings, and how some people are using it as a simple value add as part of the year-end process. So we will get into the nitty-gritty. The agenda we want to cover today is, what do you say when a business, and it's a good question to actually ask you, what do you say when a client says, how does my business compare at the moment? So for those of you who are here, you may as well jump into the chat or unmute yourselves and say, give me a quick answer. Hopefully we've got some participation on today. Again, if you're here and you're not participating, you will be driven, I suppose, by our agenda. So make sure you get your questions answered. So to ease it and to get going, what do you say when a client asks you, how does my business compare? Here's the chat. Thanks, Steve. We'll see how chatty people are.
Feel free to unmute and turn your videos on. I know some of you joined with your videos on and saw others with them off. I thought you joined their club. That's absolutely fine if you don't want to be completely shown present, but it'll be great to see your faces. Great to see and interact with you that way. But if you prefer the chat, that's fine too. But we would prefer to see your lovely faces on the call with us today.
Well, either nobody's paying attention or everybody's really shy. Let's answer that question if nobody's prepared to when we get to it. So also why benchmarking? So why do we think benchmarking is important? And hopefully you can add to this. We've asked this question at a number of events that we've been to. So it is pretty much the feedback that we've got from lots of accountants around. We've just probably changed the wording a little bit, but we haven't added too much to it. People have pretty much come up with the answers. So this is what accountants are saying about why benchmarking, who you can use it for, and the differences between the uses in the different people you're using it, the different levels of benchmarking. So how important it is to go deep into the data, or whether you stay up high level, the different types of reports you can send and how you can send different reports out. We'll be covering what is benchmarking and how to use it. So we'll be going into a detailed view of exactly what is clarity benchmarking and how do you make sure you're getting all the right things. Certainly Catherine, before we started, had some questions, so hopefully we can get to those and answer those too. Otherwise, we'll deal with them next. And then what next? So what can you do with it? How can you monetize it, particularly monetize it? Some people will want to use it purely as a value add. That's okay. But let's look at how you can monetize it and simply and effectively monetize it within your accounting firm. Okay, Steve.
Thank you, Ainsworth.
Let's start with what it's all about.
Yeah, this is just a reminder, what we're all doing. We were actually speaking again at the top of the call with Catherine about having purpose front and center, so you know exactly what you're doing and making sure that you're going down the right path and saying yes to the right opportunities, because there will always be opportunities. It's about tuning into the right ones and saying no to everything else. So once you have your purpose front and center, it allows you to do that. Now, for some of you, your purpose will be this, or certainly this is the outcome of your purpose, is to build an elite accounting firm. You can see here on one side of the triangle, you've got your clients. So instead of chasing clients, you actually choose clients. You can ask those clients that you don't really want to work with anymore to find happiness elsewhere. But more importantly, if we park that to one side, what it allows you to do is attract and keep the best clients, the clients that you want, your ideal clients. So that is the left-hand side of the triangle. On the other side, we have the other people in your business, the team. And what happens is instead of being time-driven, you become impact-driven. So the team are there to create teams of income. They are doing their own thing. They don't need to be micromanaged. They are contributing almost profit centers to your accounting firm, doing work that they love and enjoy, and not the monotonous stuff that we hear about in other accounting firms. None present, I'm sure of that. And as a result, you become a magnet for talent so that they want to stay. So it's easy to retain people and they want to stay and develop their careers with you. And as a result, both of those people, because we're in a people business, let's face it, they rave about you. They rave about your accounting firm and everything that you're doing. And then that finally allows you to charge what you're really, really worth. So instead of focusing and reporting on history, we're now creating history with our clients and helping them move forward. So do keep this front and center. This is really, really important. This is what, when Ains and I were in practice, what we were striving to achieve and got to elements of it. Absolutely. But now with today's technology and with everything else that we've been doing over the last 10 years or so, it's even more accessible to pretty much any accountant to be able to get to this point in time. So that's just a reminder of why would we do benchmarking in the first place? It's to get to this point. So that is the big picture type of focus, because then we're actually helping our clients and getting the right type of clients and getting our team to deliver that for us so that it's not completely reliant upon you. So why benchmarking? One of the biggest things that's come out from when we've discussed this with our beta testers and with people when we've had roundtables is it builds trust and credibility. So it positions you, the accountant, and your team as the expert, because you are almost like the font of all knowledge then. You're able to give that insight and be able to help the client understand how they're doing against their peers. Really, really important for them to be able to see that. Catherine mentioned in the chat that you've never been asked, your clients have never asked you how you're performing. Now, that's an interesting one. So to start with, I didn't either. And when I was in practice, my clients didn't really ask me because they always thought, oh, we won't pester Steve. Steve's always busy. He always seems busy. We're not going to pester him. And we don't want to send him any more work because he's always busy whenever we speak with him. And it wasn't until I started changing my approach with my clients and speaking to them about how these are the type of clients we're looking for, these are the types of services that we can help you with, or anyone that you know. This is the capacity that we have. We're looking to take on 5 new clients this month. and these are the type of clients we would like to work with, only then there was that change in mindset that they realized that actually I can speak to Steve and his team, and that we can not worry about him or his team being too busy. So it was an interesting mindset shift for my clients. So when they ask that question, yeah, and they eventually they do, how does my business compare? Because they all want to know how they're comparing. They don't know what good looks like. Am I scraping by? Am I doing okay? They might have a target in mind with their income, but most of them are just plodding along. Yeah, it's a job effectively. They're just plodding along. Is this level of profit sustainable? What can I do? So when you stop and start speaking with your clients, you'll find that they'll start asking more questions to you as well. And the more you build that out, the more conversations that you're going to have.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in my accounting firm, I think, well, we used to do a lot of work with entrepreneurial organizations. So we used to do a lot of work with Nigel Button's Entrepreneur Circle. We used to do some with Dan Priestley with the Dent organization and their accelerator programs. And they were all obsessed with comparisons. Now, I don't know if that was just the character type in those entrepreneurial type organizations where they were desperate to understand how their turnover compared against others within business and within their industry. So both, they were concerned about both. Both organizations were very keen on helping them understand their numbers and pushing you need to know your numbers. And so they were, thinking for the first time about GP and what should my GP be and how does it compare to your GP and how does it compare to other GPs, like other plumbers in my area or whatever, the industry. So we used to get asked that question a lot. And unfortunately, we'd have to give them the stock answer. So yeah. We didn't have benchmarking around. I mean, I certainly have used benchmarking in the past with other organizations, not to be named. I'm sure we all know who I'm talking about in the UK. And often there was a lack of data quality or data integrity. You were often benchmarking against yourselves. And so that's very much what we set out to not to do with Clarity. There's 14,000 companies on the platform that you can benchmark against. There is data normalization in place so that when you do benchmark, you won't always get against the 14 because for whatever reason, we'll be taking out the outliers, top and bottom. We'll be taking out any anomalies that look really weird. So lots of companies will be excluded depending on the period that you choose as well, that there's data in the system to be able to choose for that period. So we used to get that question a lot, Steve. So I would be grateful now to be able to say, well, hang on a sec. Either for a fee or for a meeting or for prospects, I'll do it free to get you in the door. Let's go into detail about how you compare and what you need to do to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this comes on to our next point, Ains, is that it is human nature. You alluded to this at the top of the session. It is human nature to see how you compare. Our ego is helpful, sometimes not. Everyone needs one though, because it allows you to push and really strive and develop to be the best that you can be. And so from an ego perspective, I think that's okay. If you want to know if you're the best or not, and you want to strive to be the best, absolutely go for it. And I think that's something that comes in business owners and entrepreneurs, that they want to understand that. Am I the best? How can I be the best? What does the best look like? But also from that growth and improvement perspective, or they may have targets that they want to hit. Or maybe there's certain markers that they're trying to achieve before they exit or take the next stage of the business or market share or whatever it would be. So I think it's, in addition to the human nature element of it, I think there's that growth mindset that comes with it too. So that's the next point in reality, is looking at that performance improvement. It shows where the clients can improve and what their potential actually is. So that's something not necessarily, if you're in the 20th percentile, you're not going to jump to the 75th, but then you can see what you can do to get to the 30th as an example. So the AI that we're building out in Clarity will actually show the client that. So they'll be able to see, and you'll be able to see and be able to discuss with them, well, you're at the 25th, this is what the 30th looks like, the 40th and the 50th, as an example. Now, which one feels like a good stretch goal, realistic but stretch goal to aim for? So you can look at that for each of the numbers and then be able to push things forward and help them realize their potential, particularly if you have a niche and you have other businesses doing it in your client base, and it makes it even more accessible to them because 100% that there are people out there doing it. Because that's always the thing with benchmarking is clients, I mean, that's why I used it in my firm. And again, as Ainsley mentioned, it was very rudimentary, pretty much benchmarking against yourself, unfortunately. But it was to be able to show the client where we did have a data set, is to show them that there is a different way. Because my clients used to say to me, and you may have heard this, oh no, not in my business. Gross profit of 50% is not possible. I'm going to stick at 40. But I know, and I knew, right, with the other clients I had, there was actually 60% was possible. So it was being able just to lift the veil so that they could see a different way. We're not showing them the how, and that's for them and their brains to work on. We may have some insights if we have other clients, we may not. That's okay, but it's for them to be able to work on. But we're showing them that there is a way forward and a different way of looking at things. So we're just coming at it from a different perspective. And that's another reason why benchmarking and what it allows us to be able to do. Okay. Next, objective and customized advice and support. So deeper insights based on the data. So again, if you have a specialism, this is really helpful because you can go really, really deep. But if not, you can just start to target on those particular numbers and then ask certain questions that we have within the platform, and as well as then give specific advice based around that. In the benchmarking report itself, you'll see that there are 7 different strategic points that you can work on with the client, or get the client to work on, I should say, get them to work on it on their own. Whether that's too many or not, it's entirely up to you, but that's plenty for them to go into. So there shouldn't be any stuck points in terms of, like, how do I do this? Can you allow them to then start focusing on that? And then that gives you that opportunity then to say, a bit like Steve Reed, give you an opportunity to say, well, this is where you are. Let me help you move towards it. And let's dive deeper into your business, and I'll support you along the way with accountability for one business and for the planning service with the other. So it's a fantastic opportunity there. Not just with clients, though, we have the opportunity to do this for prospective clients. So it's a fantastic marketing tool. Now, I know some of you are already doing that on the call today. Lots of our members are having fantastic success in doing this, and whether that's cold outreach or whether that's actually for clients or prospective clients that are already coming in, and it's just another step in the process that you're currently doing. It's a fantastic opportunity to differentiate yourself from everybody else that's out there and show your expertise. Again, building that trust and credibility and getting clients to say, or prospective clients to say yes, but also at the right price point as well, because they can see how you are different. And then it enables you to have good conversations. So you can generate those meetings we saw with what Paul was doing. You can then use that just to explain the report and go through and help them understand it. And for those clients that want to take the next step, you can do that too, or you can actually use it to help understand and create a plan forward for them so that they can start working towards their potential straight away. And then finally, as we've been talking about already, is that you can get that report sent out. So some of the case studies we talked about earlier, doing fantastic things just by sending the report. So acting as a fail-safe in one instance, but also an opportunity in another. Justification is not the right word to use, but softening the blow and demonstrating innovation for price increases. So lots of different reasons for sending the report out, but you can see that they all work on each other as well. So all of these things and that allow you to position yourself as the trusted advisor to be able to help more clients and get more prospective clients on board and the right type of clients. More importantly, it's very easy for your team to be able to do this, and they can send it out and have those meetings and conversations with your clients so that you don't have to do it.
Yeah, I think there's some really big points here, Steve. One is the data driven. So no longer do you have to, when somebody asks you, how am I doing? If you say, oh, it's not too bad. You could be a little bit better. You're at 15%. It's a good number, but I think you should be aiming a little bit higher. You can say, well, actually, compared to 963 in your area, location, whatever, you're actually performing at the bottom quartile. And I think there's massive room for improvement. And these are the things that you could do to help you improve. So there is that data driven. So it's no longer just it's actually having the data and you being the one that has the data and access to the data to be able to demonstrate to your clients that expertise in just having access to the data. As you can see, it's all of you have got access to benchmarking. It's not heavily branded, so it does not look like anything other than your own tool. So it really does set you apart. I think the other interesting point that I'd like to mention here, and it starts from a conversation that Catherine actually, so I'm picking on Catherine, I'm not picking on Catherine, but I'm just mentioning her because we had a conversation at the start. She has downloaded a number of resources from the our Advisor U, and you've all got access to Advisor U. It's where your benchmarking essentials education is stored. And there's lots of other resources in there too. And one of the resources that Catherine had downloaded was Ikigai, and that's understanding your purpose. I suppose it's a Japanese concept, so understanding your purpose as an individual is mainly what it's about. But we've built the report, the whole resource around your firm's Ikigai. So what does your firm stand for? What is it good at? What does it want to do? What can it make money from? And find that intersection to be able to find the firm's purpose. So our elite accounting members have certainly used it to good success, and have found it very helpful to do as both an individual or a leadership or a team exercise. So a great resource. Now, the reason for bringing that into the conversation was to understand the purpose. And I think, again, for benchmarking, before you go any further, it's really important for you to understand what do you want to achieve out of benchmarking. It's all very well us showing you what's possible, and that's really good for us to be able to demonstrate the possibilities and the potential for you. But one of the key things that you're going to need to go away today from is understanding, what do you want to achieve out of benchmarking? Why are you involved in benchmarking? Because it might be that you want to generate meetings and additional meetings with your clients and engage with them in a way that really speaks their language. Because let's face it, they don't understand numbers. And if we engage them in management reporting straight off the bat, if we engage them in management reporting, budgeting, forecasting, etc., it's just like, oh my God, how much is that going to cost me? I don't really understand it. I'm not going to pay for it. So the ability to engage with them on something that really excites them is a great way to start that conversation. So it might be that you want to generate meetings, but it doesn't have to be about meetings. It can be about you just sending out something to add value, to show your clients that you care about them, to show them that you've been thinking about them, because you can customize it and say, I've been thinking about you and crunched your numbers, and this is what we can see from the data that we've got. It might be just that. And the report is so detailed, it's almost like giving your clients a cookbook. So they can either go away and do it themselves, and you've given them the tools and the ideas to be able to take away and do it themselves, or it might be that you want to get involved. So it's not necessarily about you having to do more. You can just send the reports to add value if that's what you want to do. And we saw from Old Mill, for some of their clients, that's all they wanted to do, just send the reports to add value. It could be that you want to increase your fees, and this is a great way about doing it. Or it might be that you want to introduce a new service line, which is benchmarking. In the UK, plimsoll reports are 350 to 600 pounds a report. They used to actually be about 2.5 grand. So there is a benchmarking service that you could introduce if you want to. And we'll get into a lot of these in a bit more nitty gritty, but I just wanted to hit from the bat that it's not necessarily about generating meetings or selling business advisory or doing any of those things. It might be you have another idea of what you want to do benchmarking for. So please, first step today is to go away and set out what you're looking to achieve from benchmarking. And then we've got the tools and the processes and the systems to be able to help you achieve that. Okay, Steve, so let's get into, before we get into the nitty gritty under the bonnet, how do we use it? How do we effectively use it? How do we change it? How do we use it with a client, or how do we send out a report? I thought we'd get into some conversation points. So who can use it for and the differences that you'd use it for. So the first two we've got here is clients v prospects. Steve's gone quiet too.
I'm here. I'm listening.
So, Steve, what would you use it? How would you use it for prospects?
So we alluded to this earlier in terms of being able to get some. So I can give you some examples, actually more specific than what I mentioned earlier. So one of our members, he has a hit list of 10 clients that he would love to work with. So he's identified 10 clients in his niche, which is educational companies, who he'd love to work with. And what he is doing is sending out the clarity report, the clarity benchmarking report, just without the where you rank and your numbers, just the averages, and getting that out over to them so that they can see from a cold accountant that this is the type of thing that they could be doing, and it's worth having a meeting so that we can see how your numbers compare against them, and then improve them and get them up the chart. So that's something that one accounting firm is doing at the moment. So I'd recommend that if you don't have a hit list of businesses that you want to work with first, what you can do is look through your previous prospects. So those clients that you would have liked to have worked with who said no, or you didn't hear from, it's often what happens. They just disappear. So you can go back to them and send them the benchmarking report. Now, when we say send, I think it's really, really important that we just differentiate, if we get any deeper into this, we differentiate between the method of sending. Now, we all know email, and it's quick and easy, and we can attach PDFs and away we go. And there's a template email in the platform for you to copy and paste, and you can even send it directly from the platform. But when sending something like this, because of its importance, the same with the initial Clarity report, same with any report really that you're going to utilize from Clarity, it's always best to send it in the post with a cover, like a comp slip. Doesn't have to be a covering letter, just a comp slip, handwritten ideally if you can. And the team can do that for you. You don't have to do it, but it takes seconds, not minutes. And the reason we say that is because it breaks the normal patterns of receiving information. So most of us are used to receiving information digitally. So email, message, text message, you know, social media messages, you name it. So we're used to that. We don't really use our mobile phones for phone calls. These days, it's a computer that is for messaging. So, and you can't send a report down a telephone call. So what we would suggest is to break that cycle, is to then send it in the post, because they're not used to it. So when something comes in the post, it's almost a novelty and they're excited. And if you want to use a bright colored envelope, you can go ahead and do that to make it stand out even more. The other thing just to think about as well is when you or the team are normally contacting the clients, have a think about this. Be interesting to say, drop into the chat. When you're normally contacting the clients, is it for, and just go for the majority, is it asking for information? So for bank receipts, bank feed update, missing information for accounts prep, bookkeeping, back returns, or is it giving information out, asking to be able to help the client? Because it'd be interesting to put it in the chat. I'd just like to know if it was the first one, just go 1 or 2. That's where you can just push type 1 if it's the first one where you're requesting information, or it's 2 where you're suggesting information. Be really interesting to see. But most of the firms that we've spoken with about this has said it's 1. So they're predominantly requesting information. So when your client sees your email, they're likely to dismiss it because they think, oh, I'm just asking for more information. I haven't got the time to do it right now because I'm busy doing the doing. Or I've looked at my phone and it's Saturday night and I'm, in the middle of watching the football or whatever it is that they're doing. So they'll do it later. So thank you for everybody for dropping into the chat. There's not many of you that have, so thank you for, hopefully everybody's still switched on, Ains, but we'll carry on regardless. We'll carry on. So that's just a point with regards to the methods of use. So yes, it costs more money. Yes, it's not necessarily sustainable, but what you can do is a nice way of doing it. So what we'd like you to do is bring the report back to us. If you don't want to keep it, bring it back to us and we will recycle it on your behalf. So you can do something like that. So you make sure that for your sustainability goals, that you are actually getting that paper recycled, because I know that we're all paper offices these days. But there's something magical about receiving it in the post. So please do that. So that's just something to break the pattern in terms of method. And another thing is, so we said with the prospects, everyone who said no or you haven't heard from for the last year, anyone that's come by you, it's worth sending out that way, because the likelihood of their new accountant that they went with of doing a benchmarking report for them, it's probably 0 chance of that actually happening. So again, it just sets you apart from everybody else. Haynes, any other ways, from what I've spoken for a little while now, any other ways of prospects?
I'm just thinking, so let's just hammer the prospects for the time being, because it could be that we contact clients the same way. So let's just bear that in mind. So a lot of times when we ran a lot of events and did a lot of workshops, and the call to action at the end of those was for people to avail themselves of a free diagnostic review. And to do that, they needed to give us a set of recent management accounts or a set of their year-end financial statements. And we used to run that through a program called, at the time, Cash Flow Story, because that was really the only thing around that I could do that could do something similar. And we would look at maybe remuneration planning or R&D tax credits or sorry, whatever was happening, you know, from a high level on the set of accounts so that we could potentially suggest profit tax improvements as well as profit improvements. So that was kind of the plan. Set up a meeting to go through the possibilities and then ask that person whether they wanted to work with us. Now that worked really, really well, because whilst you were doing an event or a workshop, you had the stage, you were the sole focus, without ego here. You were the one that was coming across as a different type of accountant, probably to the one that they had been dealing with in the past. And it made, you know, it was kind of like an offer is it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion. It doesn't cost, it doesn't hurt. Let us have a look at your date and let us see what we can do to help you improve. Now, that sort of response, we used to get a really high response rate to that. And it was a great way to generate prospect to client meetings. So we had a system for it. So it was highly systemized, how it operated, how we went through that whole process. And our members of Clarity at Pro, I think, get the Trust Share Discover document, which is that whole systematic approach to prospecting and how to be able to do that really, really efficiently and effectively. That's not the point I'm making. It was just that it was a great tool to be able to get engagement and to get client prospective client data. Now, I would use the same thing here instead now, in that we can do a high specific benchmarking report for you. So I think it's a great call to action at the end of something if you're doing a workshop or events. Now, most accountants don't do workshops or events, so that's okay. But I've heard of, it was actually Sharon, she was at a fair. I haven't actually heard the outcome of this, but she was at a fair, it was a business fair, and on their stand, their offer was a free benchmarking report. So that's, again, something that you could certainly do at something like that. Now, we're talking about the lists that you have. A lot of accountants don't have an organized CRM system to be able to chase up leads and lists and pipeline management, but certainly the ways you suggested are a great way to do it. So that's, I think, how we need to be thinking about it for prospects. So it's probably free. It's probably encouraging them to get their data, showing some trust in you, and starting that process of building that trusted advisor status, giving them a free report, and then setting up a meeting to be able to go through it and discuss it and talk about what you can do as a firm to be able to differentiate yourself on the market, to be able to help them move forward, whether that's from compliance or bookkeeping or business advisory or tax planning or whatever, to be able to talk to them about what you can do to help. So I think that's a great way from a prospects perspective. From a compliance,
there's two more Ains. There's two more Ains. Just to further emphasize what you mentioned. So may well be some networkers in the room. So I know that networking events are popular with accountants. So it doesn't have to be like Ainsley's brilliant at speaking from stage and running events and so on. So you don't have to do those. You can be at a networking event and do exactly the same thing. So that's just to bear that in mind. You don't have to be running events or attending events to do that. You can just do that in your networking. The other thing to think about as well, the number one source of I guess given the answer, the number one source of new prospects for accountants is referrals. And that has been since the year dot. Whether you ask for it or not, I mean, if you have a systematic way of asking for it, fantastic. So it's something to think about if you don't. But you could then offer a benchmarking report. So you can go through the benchmarking report with your clients, which you're going to come on to in a second, and then I'll say to them, oh, by the way, do you know any other businesses in that sector that would love to see how they're comparing? And we would offer, as a gift from you, we would offer them this free report, free meeting, so in order to make that happen. And then you can get your referral and then do another report for a prospect that way. So, Ace, back over to you.
No, and let's continue on the marketing masterclass here. The script, by the way, I've just written it down. So to answer that dreaded question, and what do you do? Don't tell them you're an accountant. Not that there's anything wrong with an accountant. I'm an accountant. I like accountants. But what do you do? So I help owner-managed businesses increase profits, reduce tax bills, and plan for exit. And I start working with businesses by creating a benchmarking report so I know where they are now and where they could get to be able to help them bridge that gap. So that's what you do. And that's already done your pitch. and they go, oh, that's interesting. Can you do that for me? Off you go. Of
There you
course.
go.
Just let us have your information. So I'm sure people have got a better scripting and they'll be able to work on it. But I think that's a really good starting point. So rather than saying you're an accountant, we work with the most progressive small business owners to help them increase their profits, reduce their tax bills, and plan for exit or something similar. And we do that we start with, and how's about we do that for you? So anyway, enough about marketing and prospects. About clients, because most people will be using it for clients. And if you're in doubt, we've got a decision tree later, but if you're in doubt, oh my God, like the worst thing is inaction here. So the worst thing is is like going, I don't know whether to do which or which first, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just not going to do anything. So in the absence of knowing exactly what you want to do here with benchmarking, start with clients. So don't think about prospects, just start with clients because they're already buying from you. So they're already on board and think highly, hopefully, of you. So by giving them something extra, you're going to help that relationship even more. So start with clients if you're in doubt about where to go with this. And for clients, we've talked about the differences between them and prospects. So for clients, we are using it probably to break the pattern, as Steve said, of communication that we're having with them already. So if we're constantly chasing them for year-end accounts, for GST or VAT returns, if we're chasing them for payroll, we're chasing, all they ever see us are the chasers. And they kind of go, oh God, well, what do they want now? So this is a great way to break that pattern interrupt and also show them about some of the different things that you can do for them if that is, you want to offer those services. You then need to decide whether you're going to charge for it or not. I would suggest, if in doubt, don't charge. If you're in doubt about charging or not, please don't charge, because it means that you're adding something of value to the client and you're enticing them to take up something further from you and effectively give you the opportunity to talk to them and hopefully get them to buy some of your additional services. Now, bearing in mind, we always believe that professional services are bought by small business owners. They are not sold by accountants. We're not great salespeople. We shouldn't have to be. We don't need to be. All we need to do is demonstrate the value, show how we can help, and position it so that the client will say, I want a piece of that, rather than us having to blog something to that small business owner. So work with the client, don't charge them, give it free, offer a meeting, and then take it from there. So I think the difference between clients and prospects is prospects, you're using it to get information in the door to start that whole process. With clients, you already have their information. So this is saying, hey, look, we've got lots of data. We've been crunching, we've been thinking about you. We've crunched your numbers. We think there's a lot of improvements within your business. And here's a report that's going to show you what's possible and how you can go about achieving that. If you'd like to have a meeting to discuss this in a little bit more detail, then please do. There's no obligation to you to offer a meeting, by the way. Some accountants will just want to send the report and say, there you go, gift to you, thank you very much. But if you do want to offer that meeting, then it's a great way for the client to say, actually, that's really interesting. Can we have a chat? And effectively, we've got a whole systemized approach to having that meeting. So you don't need to think about, oh my God, what am I going to cover on that meeting? You can just follow our systematic approach to how I have that meeting and how that goes. So don't panic. If you want that support and help, it's there. So clients, default position, don't charge. Default, send it out by mail and either offer a meeting or not. Right. Is there anything else to add there, Steve, at this point? Does anybody have any questions?
Well, whilst people are either typing in the chat box or getting ready to hit that unmute button, we've covered some of the examples in the case studies. So sending out 2 weeks after the year ends, accounts have been finalized. That's a great way to do it. And utilize, doing that as part of the price increase process and the innovation that you're doing is always helpful as well. Doing it proactively, just identifying 10 clients that you would always, the ones you love to work with. Oh man, I'd love to be able to work with these people more closely. I know they've got the money as well. I just need a hook to be able to show what I can do. This is that opportunity. So lots of different ways that we've already talked through with regards to the clients.
Okay, I'm not sure if Matt was just there to set up the meeting or whether he's in the background, but if Matt can let us know if any of the discussions he's been having with people, are they using it in any different way with clients or prospects? Hey, Matt.
Hey guys, yep, I have been here. I've just been sitting in the background manning the chat. But there's a few different ways that our members I've seen have been using it for, was it mostly prospects you were wanting to know about, Ames, or clients and
clients
prospects?
probably. Let's go with clients.
Yeah, sure. So the first is a value add, some of those that I've seen come through. And it depends on the kind of relationship they've got with that client. If the client's already on a larger fee, then sometimes they're a little bit reluctant to seek to charge for that, which you might have mentioned earlier. But a value add, so for example, like a year-end meeting or a tax planning meeting, something like that. But we do have a couple of members. One isn't on the call today, but I spoke to him maybe 2 weeks ago, and he just jumped straight into benchmarking, and he said, I'm charging this client for a new piece of work. They're ready to expand their business, so I want to show them where they are. And with the benchmarking report, I think he charged 1,800 quid for a benchmarking report. So it was pretty substantial, that one there. So yeah, the value add, the one-off piece of work, and then there's 2 or 3 other members we've had who are sitting around the 300, 400, 500 pound mark to offer that as a service itself with the benchmarking report so as a standalone thing. So it's like initially, here's your report up front, and then we're going to work with you to maybe in the next 6 months, we'll come back to see where you are in relation to where you started. And that's then an annual piece of work for them as well.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
No worries.
Okay, the next thing we wanted to talk about was the different levels of benchmarking. And I think it's really important to stress this up front. So before we delve into the nitty-gritty of benchmarking, these are points we kind of wanted to make up front. Now, Steve and I could talk a lot, so bear with us if we're hammering certain points over and over and over again. Hopefully, we're not getting many questions. So again, as I said, it's going to be our agenda unless we hear otherwise from those on the call. The different levels of benchmarking we wanted to talk about was deep versus high level. Now, I've had an accountant member, hopefully they're not on the call. I'm not going to mention them by name, so nobody's going to know who it is. Ask me if, so they wanted to get really specific. So they wanted to benchmark, for example, plumbers. So I'm picking on plumbers today, but plumbers is the main one. They wanted to benchmark plumbers, but in the southeast of England, they wanted to exclude London, and they only wanted to show certain areas, but they wanted more than one area, and so they were going into that level of detail. So effectively, all plumbers outside central London in a radius of about 100 miles. Well, unfortunately, for one, the software is not that sophisticated, unfortunately, to be able to enable you to do that level of playing with data. Now, of course, if people wanted to invest significant sums in development, then we would be happy to go away and create an all singing, all dancing, completely rocket-fueled benchmarking product. But effectively, it's your choices are sector, location, and you can't choose multiple locations. Obviously, the data crunching would be crazy, and the fees for that would be obviously commensurate with the level of data crunching that's going on. Now, the point of that is, sorry, I'm going on a long-winded one here, aren't I? The point of that was not the different types of areas they were choosing to. It was just the level of nitty-gritty detail that they were trying to go to, so that they were convinced that it was going to demonstrate a particular conversation points that they wanted to have and continue in a bias that they had on data. They wanted it to effectively match their bias and data so that they could have that conversation with the client and know exactly what they were going to talk about with that client. The reality is that whether you benchmark against all businesses on the platform, or by sector and location, or by location, whatever you want to do, it's really interesting when you drill down bit by bit by bit, that the general curve of the client's results will remain pretty much the same. So if they're good profitability against all businesses, they're going to be really good in their location and sector as well. Or if they're good against their sector, they're going to be good enough against all businesses too. So the graph and the flow of their performance is pretty much identical, whether we drill nitty-gritty into the detail or whether we look at it at a more high-level perspective. It's just the positioning that changes in each of the various categories. So, of course, if you want to be able to say to your clients, we're benchmarking you against plumbers in the UK, or plumbers in the US, or plumbers in the Midwest or in the US, or plumbers in wherever, and you want to be able to go into that nitty-gritty detail, it might help the conversation, but maybe you don't need to go into that level of detail. I mean, certainly, obviously, the fear for a lot of accountants is the question is, oh, how valid is the data? So if I can demonstrate how niche I've gone with the data, then it's going to say that this data is good and high quality data. Most small business owners don't care. Most small business owners want to have the conversation. So yeah, it's nice to know my position, but if you're telling me I'm in the mid quartile, or I'm a, like position 7,081 of 14,000 businesses, I kind of see there's room for improvement. I can see that there's a need for improvement. I don't need to know nitty gritty. Oh, you're ranked number 7 of 9 plumbers in downtown, wherever. So be careful how much you go, how deep you go. And I think as accountants, we love nitty gritty detail. I mean, we're systems people, we're data oriented. We love to go into the nitty gritty. Sometimes it's better to just take a step back and look at a higher level picture. So one, you will be restricted by the development in the platform as to what you can benchmark against. Like we had, for example, one person wanted us to freeze revenue and compare with equal revenue, how they compare it against all the other numbers. And again, those are great things to ask, but you know, realistically, to build a piece of software that did all of that would be quite a substantial piece of work. And it doesn't exist in the world as we know now. So it's not likely to in the near future. But why are we getting into that level of detail? We should be looking at the bigger picture in many respects. So be very careful how deep you go. I mean, it's okay. And clearly the platform will jump up to the next level. So if it doesn't have X number of plumbers in New York, for example, it'll jump up to a higher area, a bigger distribution, or it will jump up if there's not enough sufficient plumbers, it'll go up to the next category in the classifications of businesses. So you don't need to worry if you drill down, it will drill back up for you if it can't find the data that it finds, and it does that automatically. But be careful how deep you go, because what's the purpose of going so deep that you're only going to have a conversation with a client about 3 or 4 plumbers that they're looking at? It might be better to compare them against plumbers in the US or plumbers in the UK, for example. So that's just, I think, kind of what we wanted to make about how nitty gritty some accountants go on the level of detail they need for the benchmarking report.
Yeah, and it comes back to your why. So why are you having this conversation in the first place, and why do you want to help your client understand how they're doing? And ultimately, it will probably come back to, well, I feel that they're not fulfilling their potential and there's room for improvement. So I just want to be able to show them, like in my example with the one I used earlier, that the particular clients that were set in their ways, knowing my business can't be run any different way. These are the numbers. That's why I was using benchmarking with them, so they could see a different perspective and then start to pick what potential could be achieved. So if they don't have an idea of where they could get to, if they don't believe they can change, then, and then lots of other reasons, you've got the opportunity to share benchmarking with your clients and the benchmarking report to be able to go through that with them, just to give them that other perspective. And it might be, as Ainsley said, ultimately it's just a report to add value, or it might be that you actually want to have a meeting with them and help them achieve their potential. So then that's the real reason for doing it. So just bear that in mind. It's what is the outcome that we want to achieve, and then make sure that that's addressed in the report or in the meeting.
Did anybody have any questions on the data, types of data in the system? I mean, clearly, the more people that come on to Clarity Benchmarking, the more data that's going to be loaded onto the system, the more companies that you're going to be benchmarking against. So that goes without saying. But 14,000 as a starting point is a really good sample size. And yeah, absolutely, you may not have, like we had somebody, as Matt was talking to somebody who wanted to benchmark within Queenstown in New Zealand. And unfortunately, Queenstown, the last census, they were less than 18,000. Like we go down to locations of 18,000 inhabitants. So Queenstown, I would have expected it to be more, to be honest, but it wasn't greater than 18,000, and therefore it was excluded from the list of locations. So it's looking at, okay, so what's the bigger location near you that will cover that area? And it was, oh, okay, I could pick that one then. And I think that the accountant realized, actually, I don't want to be benchmarking them just against like 4 or 5 or 10 plumbers within that area. I want to be looking at a slightly bigger chunk of data to be able to get a more statistically accurate sample size to be able to have more valuable conversations. So I think that's probably the point where we're using.
Is
You've got
there any
another-
chance?
Sorry, Catherine.
Sorry, Ainsley, is there any chance of doing it, say, by region? Because, for example, Cornwall being its own little microcosm of whatever, versus London, you're comparing. Although you might be comparing a similar business, it's quite often it's got a different potential.
Yeah, Steve, my understanding is if you picked Cornwall and there was sufficient in that area, it would jump up from a regional perspective.
It doesn't work like that at the moment with regards to regions. So
No.
it does. So bear with me 1 second, Catherine. So it does with the so if you pick plumbers, then it will go up to whatever there are 4 levels, aren't there, in the SIC codes. So if plumbers is the bottom level, it will jump up to the one before, which might be tradespeople and so on and so on. But so just with regards to that, it doesn't expand to the other regions. It's not at the moment, and it's developing all the time. It's not clever enough to know the locations next to it. However, what I would suggest is, again, we don't want to. So first and foremost, is that an objection from the client, or is that an objection from us? Because I know we're scared that we're going to get that objection from the client.
It's more to say to the client, well, this is the number of businesses we've looked at. So it's like if I put in Truro for one of my clients, well, there's no point putting that because I know that it looks like there's only 2 who might fall in that category and I don't want to be benchmarking at that level because it's going to be fairly obvious who the other people are. So it was more if I want to get it smaller than the UK, which is what I can get to at the moment. But no.
Oh, I've lost Catherine there. I'm not sure if Catherine. Well,
Catherine, it was just whether
you're back. You're back.
It was whether there was any way to pull it back, or to be able to work out what we're looking at, what number of what number of companies has it used as its collection, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Because
So
one out of 10 is great if you can sort of demonstrate that there are 10 sort of thing, but if they're sort of in at 2, is that 2 of 10 or 2 of 5,000 sort of thing?
So to come back to your original question, I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker of London is different. And the reason why, and I know that might be contrary to a popular belief, but the reason why is, why can't a business in Cornwall be like a business in London? So it's just coming at it from a different perspective. So we're not saying, oh, we're handicapped because of the area, we're not in London. So it's coming at it from a different perspective of, oh, how could we, even though we're not in London, how could we build a business as if it were in London? So we start thinking differently and operating in a different way. So that's just the first thing I would say. And that's just my own personal belief and viewpoint of the world is if they can do it, I can do it. That's just how I see things. So and again, coming back to the numbers, so you can see the numbers of businesses in there. So when you're being ranked, and we'll show you on the screen later, so you'll be able to see as a minimum what number of businesses have been benchmarked against with that regards to those businesses. So you'll be able to see that. But I think, again, it's just remember, this isn't like the client isn't going to quiz you on this and want to know, well, I only want to be benchmarked against certain businesses. But you're in control of this. And if they do ask awkward questions, you can say, you know what, that's a great question. I'll go away and find that out. But the point being, with regards to the benchmarking, is that we want them to be able to see another possibility. And even whether you're in London or not, there will always be an outlier and we do our best to take the outliers out to normalize the data, but there's still going to be some big businesses in there. I don't know, they're in Cornwall. Let's take Tarquin's Gin as an example, right? Really, really popular around the world. But if there was another gin distillery in Cornwall, that they may not want to be compared against that. But then again, I'm saying that we need to be thinking about, well, how can I be the next Tarquin's? So it's not necessarily excluding the information. We want to say this is the data set that we have. this is what's possible. So we might have an idea that for gin distilleries, Tarquin's is the top one in Cornwall, as an example. So if we don't think that's possible, but we're instantly limiting ourselves, then okay. If the client doesn't want that, then that's fine. But it's having a view of possibility. What is possible? Where can we get to with this? And then what do you want with this? So if the average is £1 million in revenue for the business, you can ask them, is that where you want to get to? Well, how much do you want? And they might not know. And that's when you can then come in and start having conversations with the clients and say, well, let's work on where point A, let's work together on point B. And you can start to have these conversations around potential. So I honestly do feel, and I'm saying this, Kevin, because I've been there and I've been my own blocker. I've asked questions of myself and not used things because I thought that I needed to know all of the answers. But if we just present the clients with enough information to see things differently, yes, ideally we want to focus on their sector, but if it doesn't need to be just Cornwall, and you know, and it doesn't need to be excluding of London. I think we should it's on us. It's our responsibility to show them what is actually possible. This is what other businesses are doing. So they found a way of doing it. Let's see what we can do. And by the way, do you want to get to 10 million revenue? Oh, don't worry about it then. Let's see where we can get to. And that's the next percentile up is 750,000. Is that more where you want to get to? Great. So what do you think we could do to get your business there? So that's the idea behind it, really, is just get the juices flying, get the conversations going, and get the client thinking a little bit differently.
Great, Steve. I think that'll be easier to show when we actually go through it so that people can see what we're talking about there rather than trying to visualize data. Some people see it better than others.
Good point,
I think
Haynes.
certainly the regional is something that we can look at. The tiered structure that we use is just it doesn't have that tiering like the business structure does. So we can certainly look at regionally. I accept the point on regional, definitely. Can the benchmarking be used with different types of businesses? Not at the moment, but that's certainly something, if that's really something that people want, then we can look at adding that to it. You could break it down by business structure because that requires input from you at some point to tell it the business structure. So that's certainly available, absolutely possibility. How safe is the benchmarking data? Will clients ask what happens to my proprietary information? Who could possibly get their hands on it? The data is stored in AWS. It is most government agencies use AWS for their data storage. It has, bulletproof protocols to try and ensure integrity of data. AWS has most of the world's data. In fact, a third of it is stored in Dublin. I was here recently. So the importance of protecting that data is critical to not just us, but to the world's infrastructure. So it is in as good a data secure location as can be expected from any data worldwide. The data is anonymized. So the only person who knows who that data belongs to is the accountant, is you. And that's because you've told it when you've added the link that it is that company, but that's only stored locally. So that data is anonymized in the pool. And so nobody will know who that thread links to, only you. So it's important that data is clearly anonymized. And if you break the link or called it something else, there's no way anybody would be able to understand or know who that data belonged to. So if you're very sensitive about data security, or maybe you're not used to cloud technology, or the clients are not used to cloud technology, and bearing in mind, we had a conversation with somebody else recently about Facebook and the data they're using and storing, and how people can willy-nilly offer data to Facebook and the likes. I appreciate the point, but you could just call them by the client code, for example, if that's what you wanted to add an extra layer of protection to that data. So the only person who would know who the code was you. So it is as secure as can be, with all the protocols in place to make sure it's as safe as possible. But even if the data were breached, they wouldn't have the ability to understand who's the client's the link is. So there. Is it possible to know how many businesses are included? Yes, absolutely. It does tell you in the specific sector of the clients that are included. Indeed. Okay. Steve, on-screen versus reports. I think the point to make here is you can do it both ways. You can send a report or you can show the client on the screen. And again, we'll show you how you can show them on screen. So that's just a way to be able to maybe offer a lighter approach, a lighter touch to the client. And then if they're excited and more interested, you could say, well, that's great. We can send you a detailed report. I see Marie has unblocked her video. Did you have a question, Marie? Hi, Marie, by the way.
No, I've asked those. I've asked 2 questions, so you've answered those for me. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. So you can use it on screen or you can use reports. And again, let's demonstrate that to you rather than talking about it. And the 2 different types of reports, we can get into the nitty-gritty of how you can edit your reports, how you can do a Paul Miller style report, or whether you even want to do that, whether you just want to go with the flow and go with what's there. So we'll show you how to customize your reports. As a company, we decided to use American English because you know, there's a large chunk of the world speaks in American English. So I appreciate for the Brits in the room, they're going to have to edit the report, get the Z's out, put the S's in place and the other bits and pieces. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a pain. We can certainly look at maybe adding some extra reports into the platform, Steve, which are easier for people to pick as a default. Might be a way to circumvent that, because I've had somebody jumping up and down about having to replace Z's. Yeah, absolutely. But we can certainly look at how we can do that. But the long reports, I think a lot of people say to me, oh, I don't want to send the long report because there's just too much information. I'm giving away too much with the long report. And well, that's great that the report obviously has that much detail in it. So good. Obviously, we wanted to start with the biggest so that you could strip it back if you wanted to. And when you edit reports, you can always clone them, so you save the original, so you never lose the originals as well. So just to bear in mind if you're not sure about how to edit reports. But I never subscribe to the view that you can't give away too much. It's like, you know, a cookbook. A world famous chef will give you the recipes and tell you how to do it, but most people will still go to the restaurants because they want the experience and they want the ambience and they want everything else. I think the same for here. Of course, you'll have some clients who will go, great, that's awesome, I'll just do that myself. But the vast majority are going to want handholding. Let's be honest, the greatest gift you can give to your clients is interpretation of numbers, because they just don't understand numbers and percentages, and holding them accountable. So those are the 2 greatest things you can do for your clients. And without them, they generally don't succeed. So you're the expert. This is just driving your expertise. So I wouldn't be afraid of giving too much information, but you can certainly strip it back if that's something you want to do. And should you charge? We had that conversation already. We've answered that question. Yes, you can. You don't have to. People are charging UK equivalent 350 to 1800 existing members. So that translates into 700 US to 3.6, or from a dollar perspective, a US dollar perspective, we're looking at like 425 versus, or 450 versus 250. So up to you. It depends on what you include, of course, because it might be you include one meeting, it might be you include a 6-monthly review, or it might be it's part of a bigger piece of work in which this is needed to be able to help the whole thing flow. So don't be afraid if you want to charge it, to go and charge for it. A lot of people are using it just as a prospecting tool, and I'm happy with both. Prospecting, that's either within your client base or outside your client base, by the way. So it's just about generating additional fee revenue, which is the bigger picture. So again, it's how you want to use benchmarking and what you're looking to achieve is the important part when you're looking at whether you should charge or not.
And the result, exactly. What is it that you want to achieve? Is it a stepping stone to additional services? And that will certainly, you may well then give it away for free to get them to come in, because you know that they're going to then convert into a different service off the back. Interestingly, I just remembered something. One of our members I was speaking with today, he used the benchmarking. So one of his clients is acquiring another business. They got access to the data as part of the due diligence, and he put that business, the one that's being acquired, or potentially acquired, through the benchmarking, so that could form part of the due diligence decision-making process. So it's another way that accountant is adding value to the service that he's already providing, and he's going to get a completion fee, a percentage completion fee if the deal goes through as well. So that's just something else to think about, how you can utilize this within other services that you're helping.
Indeed, and it's a great tool to fuel the valuation conversation. So one, to up the multiple by saying they're systemized business and they're highly profitable, and you can see how they compare to others in the area. So that means they're attracting a higher multiple. Or on the other side, if you're purchasing, to be able to attack holes in it. So a great way for helping or attacking the valuation of the business and substantiating or questioning it. So I do certainly have a look at it from a corporate finance perspective. I haven't thought of that, but that's absolutely a good use of it, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was as well. I agree. Very clever. Okay, we're going to jump in now, Haynes, I think, aren't we?
Yes.
Right. I'm going to share screen and share what's going on. Share desktop. There we go. Thank you, Haynes. My computer's been really slow today. Apologies if it's a bit laggy as well. My computer's not playing ball. Right. I'm on my Acme supplies. Now, forgive me with the date. It's just when I've got some decent data in here for this particular demo company. I'm on the 7 key numbers screen. And most of you, or if not all of you, are familiar with the benchmarking that we have within the platform. I'm not going to spend too much time there. I want to spend time, as Ains mentioned, with editing the report and showing what you can do there. But I will go through this. I'm going to move quickly. If you have questions or want me to slow down, please shout. You can unmute yourself and say, "Oi." That's okay. You can do that. Or you can just drop in the chat, because we'll be watching the chat as well. So I'm going to go, whilst I'm in, so certain points just to point out, there are 3 different benchmarking options within the benchmarking menu. Advisor benchmarking, client benchmarking, and all businesses benchmarking. Advisor benchmarking is not present on this menu because I'm in a client. So I'm in my Acme Supplies business. When I go into my firm, and I'll show you that in a moment, you'll see that the advisor benchmarking becomes available. So we've got client benchmarking. As it sounds, it's going to benchmark against my existing client base. So that might be something you'd like to do, just so you can see how your clients compare against each other. But we also have all business benchmarking. I'm going to focus most of the time here because the functionality is exactly the same, but there's more data here. And again, I'm in demo data, so I don't have many clients within my system. So the benchmarking is done live. So it pulls the anonymized data and it does the calculations live. That's why it takes a few seconds to do it. As Ainsley mentioned, we actually now have over 15,000 businesses on the platform. So that adding businesses all the time. And then we get presented with the benchmarking curve. So this is the curve that Ainsley was alluding to, and I'll show you again in a moment what this looks like when we change by location, where we change by sector. The curve generally stays true in terms of where it is. The ranks will obviously change, but the curve, the line, generally stays true with what's happening here. Now, with this particular business, if I go to the lowest possible target, we can see there 9,997th place for core cash target. So I know this is at least being benchmarked against 10,000 businesses. So for all of those data points, but it's just I've picked the lowest one just to show how we're doing. So that's another way of being able to see how many businesses are included in this data pool. I would be surprised if any client is first for everything. If they are, then that's fantastic. Or it could be that there might be 0 for everything if they haven't got the data in. So we might see that as well. So that gives you an idea of what's going on. You can see the 7 key numbers. So those that you already familiar with Clarity, the numbers that we were just looking at, the 7 key numbers that every business owner needs to know. So that's what these columns are. We've added in an additional 2. So the revenue. So we've got revenue growth, but we've also got revenue, because it's always good just to benchmark against revenue itself, in addition to the core cash gap. So all the others are 7 key numbers that you're probably familiar with already. If you have a question on those, we can answer those at the end, because I want to focus more on benchmarking, if that's okay with all of you. So the core cash gap, just to explain that, it's the difference between what's in the bank and what the core cash target is. Now, the core cash target, as a reminder, is 2 months worth of overheads plus your taxes set aside. So if you have a positive core cash gap, you're doing good. You've got surplus cash in addition to having a reserve in the bank account as well. If it's negative, obviously, you haven't got as much in the bank. And that gives us, again, an idea of how the business is performing from a cash flow perspective. So not just from a core cash target perspective, but an actual cash flow perspective in relation to that. So those are the 7 key numbers, hugely important for the business to be able to see. And then obviously it links back in. So when you do have a meeting, the client then doesn't need to learn any new numbers. They're just looking at those 7 key numbers again. So it links back in nicely when you're looking at helping them improve and measure and monitoring their business and their journey along the way. I've chosen Acme Supplies. If I was going to add another business, so let's say I'm going to meet with Acme Supplies later today, and I wanted to add a demo company, I can add it hidden. And then what it will do is add the demo company without their name. So you can see it whilst it's working away. Hopefully you can see it says company 1 and it's got Acme Supplies. So once the other color comes in, you'll be able to see which the company 1 line and in direct comparison to the Acme Supply line. And I've chosen a bad company, unfortunately. This happens when it's live. I've chosen, I alluded to this earlier, didn't I? So there we go. We can see that there's 11,000 businesses there being compared against. So we've taken the outliers out for sure. Looking at those main businesses there. This one hasn't got any data, so that's why it looks a bit daft and it's all at the bottom. But the main point I wanted to show you was that it's hidden. And if we want to unhide it, the system is going to make sure that we're sure we want to do that first if we click it by accident. So we're not revealing to clients what's going on with that particular business. So let's get rid of that one. That was a bad example, but you get the idea. Play with your data, get the client's data. You'll see the lines, particularly if they're in the same sector. It's a really nice thing to be able to, for you and your team to see. But then again, as Ainsley suggested, it might be something that you just show to your client and say, look, this is client A and how they're doing. This is how you're doing. So that we can definitely see there's some room for improvement here. So again, just to give them that other perspective. Within the filters as well, so I'm on all businesses. I can filter just by this particular business sector. It just so happens Acme Supplies, the Wiley Coyote is the biggest customer. So that's why they're in this sector. If we click apply, what we should see is the graph is fairly similar to what we've just seen. So the line graph or the curve, however you want to look at it, is the same. And now we've gone to 205th place. So again, we can see the number of businesses that we're comparing against. So that gives us a good idea of what's going on. So that's with the sector. If we do country as well, so if I do United Kingdom as an example, and I want to do a city, if I'm going to choose a populous one, let's just say London for argument's sake, just so that I've got some numbers to compare it against. So we go 872 being compared in London, but I have to enter the country first and then the city, and it will do that. And then I can do both. I can do those in London in that particular sector. You can see it's getting smaller. We don't need to get into that level though of detail, as we said before. And you can see, by the way, how the curve is, it's flattened out in other places and moved in others. It's pretty much the same curve. But we don't need to get into that level of detail. Again, why are we doing this for the client? Well, what's the result that we want? Well, we want to be able to help this client fulfill the potential and offer additional services. Okay, what's in it for the client? Well, they can see things differently. They can see actually where they are performing, and we can check this before we have the meeting or send the report. How are they performing on their percentiles or ranks, whichever way you want to look at it? And we include both, by the way. We get percentiles. We're numbers, we're statisticians. Is that the right word to use? We get numbers. The clients don't get the percentiles. So giving them a rank gives them an idea of how they're performing. They always want to then try and move up to the next rank. Similar in the same sense with percentiles, but rank's easier for them to understand. So that's what we want to be able to do with them, is help them move forwards. You can have up to, I think it's 5 clients on the screen, but please don't do that. It looks awful with all the different colors. So I would suggest if you're going to show a client this, just have 2. And it could be that you're going to have your client average as well, maybe. You can add that on. So this is how your clients perform on average against those businesses in that sector, in that location. So that's just something else to bear in mind as well. Play with your data, have a go with it, and see what you come up with. Any questions with regards to the benchmarking on screen? Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move into the firm because what I want to show is the reports. So, and again, as I alluded to here, now I've got the three. So I've got the advisor benchmarking because now that's available because I'm in the firm. And I can jump to client benchmarking or business benchmarking. And what it will do is just jump to the first client because I'm not in a client. So it will just jump to the first client when you choose these client options. But that's when you get that particular setting there. What I want to do is play with the report and then we can demonstrate what the report looks like. Where we do that is within settings, in the template section and reports, and then benchmarking reports. And then from here, I've already been creating different ones. And Wesley's with us today. Thank you for joining us, Wesley. Bright and early for you in the US. So thank you very much for being here this morning. You can see that I've got the two original templates. So I've got all benchmarking, I've got sector specific. So the sector specific is slightly different language. So that the system knows to pull the sector because you're going to tell it as well as you go through that. And we'll look at the generation in a moment. But the wording is slightly different. By all means, you can go in and play with that. But if we take, so let's say I wanted to create I'll show you actually, this is what it looks like. So you have a how to use at the top here. That will explain it. But you won't need to read that because I'm going to be talking you through it. You also have here, when you create new templates, you can set that as the default. So when you come to load it, it will always be that one as the default. But again, I'll show you how you can change that on the fly too. So you've got those 2 points there. To copy the report, the original templates, you just hit the clone button. And then you can see here, it's created that copy. The blue one is the one that you're in. We can rename this. So we can rename this to be Steve's all benchmarking template. I won't make it original anymore. It's Steve's. And there we go, we've got it saved. Always remember to click save in this screen. It doesn't auto-save, so please do that. Or if you wanted to and create something completely from scratch, you can just click add template. But I wouldn't recommend doing that because all of the information is in here. Now with this is the all benchmarking original. So you can see that there are placeholders for relevant information. There are page breaks, and then it's got the relevant information in here. So again, you might be familiar with this, but we'll go through the report shortly. You can change the Z's to S's and so on. We can, whatever else that you want to do, add something in particular, you can do it. The placeholders are all listed here. So if you're not sure what to choose, you can choose from here. And just to go through that, so if we're looking at revenue, we can see here, so the columns, this is where the text is going to start with the columns. So we've got the text in here. This is explaining it. And then we have the column for the information. So this is how the business is performing. So that's their rank and the little graph. And then this here is the averages. And I'll show you what those look like on the report in a moment. So you can take some of these out if you want to, or you can add them onto a one page if you want just to show all of the averages on one page. You can do that too. You can slice this up however you want to. Again, with the strategies, we've done 7. Some people feel that's too much. Delete 4, have 3. Odd numbers seem to work really, really well. Do whatever you want to do. You can add your own. You can have it sector specific for this particular tasks and so on. But that's how it works with the report. The one thing you do definitely want to change is the next steps and the back cover page. So you've got your information in here. So definitely update it for that. And in fact, that's in the introduction as well, that we want you to get in touch, whatever it is that you want to do with the client. So you definitely have to do that in any event so that you create your own copy. But what I want to show to you, and here's one I prepared earlier, I'm going to go into the averages only. What I did is it's the full report, but what I've done, you can see here that I've just taken out that other line. In fact, there are the 2 lines and just have the averages. And what that will show is just the averages. So that's how I can send it out cold to a client. But if I take Steve's all benchmarking report, let's say for argument's sake, like some of our members, I only want to show the summary of findings. So the prefab, so I want to get rid of the contents page, let's say for argument's sake. There we go, that's done. Let's get rid of the extra page breaks, we don't need that. I still want the introduction. I might still want the data and methodology, summary of findings. That's it, that's all I want. So then I can come down here and get to the conclusion. I might want to keep the conclusion, might not. Again, let's get rid of that extra page break. Save, done. And then that allows us to then send out a summarized report if that's what we want to do. So you can play with this to your heart's content with everything you want to do. And you've all your usual formatting, adding links, add logos and images if you want to. You've got it all up here as well. So in terms of generating the report, if I go back into Acme, let's just say for argument's sake, and I want to generate the report, I'm going to generate from the report screen up the top here, click benchmarking, and I'm not going to email it, I'm going to download it. So here we can see I'm either going to use the all business template or the sector specific template. If I want to double check what template I've got assigned or I want to change it, I just click the cog. And if you remember, I set this as my default in the other screen. I can change it on the fly if I want to. So I can then just do the all business one. I'm not going to do the benchmark specifics. I'm just going to click confirm and then download that one. And then again, the numbers will be crunched on the screen. It takes maybe 30 seconds to do, 15,000 businesses to go through. And then once that's done, we'll have the report to be able to print and send out to the client. And of course, we can check it on the screen first before we do that. And I want to share that with you just to run through it. I said my computer's running slow, I do apologize. There we go. And if I move my videos over to this screen, I can then get back in here. There we go. So this is the standard report. It's got all of the information, the introduction, so contents page. So it's professionally done as you would expect from an accountant. The introduction, data and methodology, the date that we used and how we've done this, the summary of findings, and then each number has the traffic light, the rank, the little chart for the percentile and the averages. And then this is the information, explaining in layperson's terms, and then some actions. Every page is the same. So that's what we've got there. With regards to, if we do the which one did we want to do? The averages only. Yep, thank you, Ace. And I can do sector specific, by the way. If I do that, it will automatically change to what the sector specific one will be. And I tick the box to say that's the sector that I want to use. And then I can download it. But just for speed, I'm going to use this one. So averages only. And then what we will see is then the report that I've pre-done, my Blue Peter style of the averages only. So we can then go through that together as well. Again, just high level, just to show you what's possible. And then the other one, the summary one that we did, I'll show you that one too, just so you can see again, what is possible and how quickly that you can edit the report to make that happen. Any questions in the meantime, feel free to put them in the chat or to unmute yourself and jump in. I can't do two things at once. I am a man, but I'm sure that we will be able to have a conversation still. I can stop clicking through screens. Okay, this is just the average one. So it's the same report, but this is for a prospective client where I don't have their numbers. So again, actually, sorry, my mistake. I would have taken this out, summary of findings, because I wouldn't have that information. And you can see then when we get to the revenue page, so we don't have the traffic lights or the bar chart or their rank or their number because we don't have that data. But I can still send them a good report showing them what the average is and some points that may help them. And then the call to action may be book a meeting with me. You can see I've squeezed the, I know I deleted that extra column, didn't I? That was my fault. Don't do that. Don't delete the middle column like I did. Once I get to the call to action, I can then say, and if you would like to see your numbers benchmarked against these, give me a call or hit this link and fill in the information or whatever it is the call to action that you want the prospective client to do. And then finally, if we go into the benchmarking report and we do this one, you can see how easy it is to flip between the different reports as well, regardless of whether it's the default or not. We'll then see just that summary page.
Whilst that's loading, can I just have a mention on date? So choosing the date. Be careful that you don't choose June, for example, now, because whilst your client's data might be up to date, the rest of the data on the system may not be up to date to June. So I would probably go back to the previous quarter. So just be careful on the dates you choose. Most people in limited companies are probably either March or December year ends, depending on the country, or June if we're only talking Australia. So, you know, just make sure you go back to those sorts of dates to if you want to be sure that you're comparing against the most number of businesses and the data is most accurate. So obviously the data is only as accurate as what people put in.
Indeed, good point, Ains. Thank you. So yeah, going through this one, this is just so the cover sheet, the summary of findings, and then the conclusion. Some of our members haven't gone to that extent. They've just had this, and this. So that's, if you wanted to do a 3-pager, you can do. So that is just another way of being able to slice it up. Again, Ainsley and I will go through the decision tree with you. See if you're not sure what to do. We'll explain what the default position will be. But I'm going to stop sharing and join you all back. Any questions on what we've been through?
Nope.
Okay.
Coming through. I noticed that the question on data security was from outside the EU. So just to, I suppose, remind everybody, before we started Clarity, we were inside the EU. So we used AWS and GDPR regulations which were European wide. For those outside the EU, those are the most stringent data protection and data security regulations in the world. The only place that comes close is California, and then I think next is Australia. So GDPR under European regulations is the highest level of data protection and data security requirements. When Brexit happened, obviously the UK signed equivalency rules so that nobody needed to switch stuff around and do different things quickly. So effectively, the same data and the same rules apply both within the UK and within Europe. So we've stuck with the European data protection regulations. So just for that person who asked outside, it's very strong compared to worldwide regulations on data. Great, Steve. You're waiting for me to get back to slides.
Yeah, let's jump back into the slides.
Okay. When to use it, year-end versus proactive. I think we maybe have dealt with this question.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've hammered this home enough. And again, we'll go through it again in the decision tree. But can I just, with regards to that, the ideal outcome is both, but you may not get there immediately. So choose one to start with, and then eventually what will happen is you'll do both.
Yes, that's a really good business point, by the way. It's never really, do I do this and this or this? It's how do I do this and this? I don't know who paid sorry, that was a good question that was asked of me about, I don't know, about 20 years ago by somebody. Why are you talking about doing this or this? Why shouldn't you be asking how you can do this and this? And I just saw somebody post recently, somebody we all know from the tech sector who paid somebody really, was it Dan Martell? I think they were talking about, they paid him $35,000 for an hour's consultation, and that was the biggest piece of advice. So you've just all saved yourselves 35K by looking at how we can do this and this rather than this or this.
Yeah, no binary thinking, it's dual thinking.
Cool, getting started. So let's get started, everybody. Let's send out a report with all your end accounts, for example, as a great way to start. We will go through a decision tree, but a great way to get started without thinking about it, send out a report with all your end accounts with a simple call to action, which says, get in touch if you'd like to know more, or if you'd like to go through these numbers in detail. Or you could send it out proactively during the year. I do that on screen. So if you're meeting a client, say, oh, I've got something really exciting to show you. Take them through on screen and then say, would you like both? Would you like a report, detailed, and would you like to set up a meeting to do that? Whether it's a paid or not for paid for service that you've included in your firm, great way, proactively during the year. If you're meeting the client on something else, say, ooh, I've got something to show you. Offer a benchmarking service. So if that's something you want to offer, please do. Send out a teaser report to your clients and then charge them a fee for a more detailed report or for a meeting to go through and or both. No, or, and. promote a business advisory meeting or your advisory services. Some of you will be doing business advisory already, and it might be a great way for you to promote your business advisory services. So don't miss out that opportunity. Clearly, it will connect. They do dovetail in beautifully. One follows on from the other. So a great way to position yourself on those business advisory services. And the other one is for marketing purposes. So start talking about it on social media. I've certainly seen some members like Graham Tennick talking about benchmarking and offering it as a service on LinkedIn. So do use it for marketing purposes, getting prospects in the door. I think I've had a conversation with Marie, or she's had a conversation somewhere along the line about losing out a client to a firm that advertised a niche veterinary service, and benchmarking their veterinary clients was a big deal. And was one of the swing factors for many of their clients to join. I've subsequently met the person who maintained that spreadsheet, Marie, and who said it was an absolute nightmare. And it was horrendous to complete and keep up to date. So you now can bust them with your benchmarking service. And ability to benchmarking. So use it for marketing purposes. Please differentiate yourselves, stand out from the crowd, use it at events, use it at fairs, use it at workshops, use it at networking events. You know, really, yeah, get it out as wide as possible. So I think those are the 5 things that we said, Steve, to get started. But decision tree if you're stumped. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully some of you on the call will know what you're doing. You're already doing it. Some of you I know, which is fantastic. Others will be, tentatively stepping forward. And some of you may say, I have no idea. You've confused me even more. Where do I start? And this is where the decision tree comes in. So are we able to zoom in? Can everybody see this? See it okay? Yeah. Well, I can see one person nodding because only one person is on camera, but everybody else on chat, if you can't see, let us know. So let's go through talk you through the process. So you can see at the very top of the decision tree, it says it's just a recap of what we've covered already today. So this will be very familiar. So who are you focusing on? Is it on clients or on prospects? Now what we've done is color coded this. So if you're unsure, go towards the green. So if you can't make a decision, we'll help you make the decision, go to the green. Okay, because as Ainsley said at the top of the call, one of the worst things is indecision and then not doing anything as a result. So we actually want to make a decision. And if you make a decision to do nothing, that's fine. You've made the decision. But just to be aware that you have made, if you do nothing, you have effectively made a decision to do nothing. So let's make a decision to do something. Is the focus going to be on clients or prospects? If you're adamant that it's going to be prospects, great, go down that road. If you're adamant that it's going to be clients, great, go down that road. If you're not sure, choose clients. So let's stick to that path for the moment. So we're on clients. We're going to help our clients, right? Have you already increased your prices recently? If you have, then what we would recommend is going out with the proactive approach of choosing clients, choosing your best clients or the clients you'd love to work with, or choosing them at random, whatever you want to do. Get the team as well involved in this, because it's a really nice thing for them to do. Give them some ownership. Get them to choose a handful of clients each, 5 to 10 clients. Don't send them all out at once, because if you've got 50 meetings to have in a week, it's going to be pretty full on. So space them out as you send it. You might want to send 10 a week at the max, maybe, just to drip feed things in. Then that's the way to do it. And again, you can see that that's the green side. So if you are thinking about a price increase, or you're worried about talking to clients about a price increase, just go down the proactive route. If you haven't done a price increase and you're adamant that you're doing it at this moment in time, you're going to continue to do it, then what we would recommend is then include the report in the year-end process. So send it 2 weeks after the accounts have been finalized, very much like Old Mill are doing. So that is the approach. We've just said this, you're going to do both eventually, but you need to start somewhere. So go down the green side if you're not sure. Otherwise, if you're adamant on one or the other, follow that pattern. So that's the client side. So that's with the report. Let's get the report out. So again, if you're focused on, do I do it on screen or do I do it on the report? We've already done that one for you because we're saying just send the report because it's easier to do. Okay. And with regards to clients, we haven't put in here, am I charging for it or not? Because no, you're not going to charge for it. We've made that decision for you already. Don't need to charge for it. Just get it out, and on the basis that you're going to have an additional revenue down the line because you're going to help them improve and grow their business and help them move towards that. So that's the client side. If you're adamant that he's going to go on the prospects, remember it's red, so don't go this way if you're not sure. It's red. But for those of you that are adamant it's going to be prospects, how will you make the offer? So what are you going to do? So you're going to do this at events, networking, social media. How are you going to do it? Well, send it out to email. Send it out to your email list. Create an email, send it out. Just that's the easiest thing to do. Less friction. Don't need to prepare a script. Don't need to speak to people. So you can see that that's the green one. Just go and do that. If you are comfortable speaking with people at events, networking, then fine, choose that. If you're really a whiz and really social on social media, fine, do that. But you can see what we've done here is just go the green route. I almost said route then. We were speaking American with all of these report sayings, turning American. Just go through the green route if you're not sure. Will you charge? So for prospects, again, if you're not sure on what price to charge, then don't charge. If you're adamant you want to charge and we've been inspired by what we've discussed today, then pick a number and go for it. Fantastic. But both, yes or no, come back to the report. So are we sending out the report only, or are we having a report with a meeting? So again, if you can't decide and you're not sure, just send the report only. It subsequently will generate a meeting, but the meeting may well just be your normal initial client meeting or prospective client meeting, as an example. It doesn't have to be anything fancy around benchmarking. The benchmarking, as you remember from the prospect side, is just to get your foot in the door, to differentiate yourself, and then be able to do things with that client that you wouldn't necessarily been able to do. However, if you are adamant that you want to have a report, to do the report and a meeting, then go down that road. So hopefully that has made it easier for you, because I know what it's like sometimes. You come back, you've been somewhere to done some education, or you've been updated on something. You're like, oh my gosh, I've done so much information. Where do I start? Hopefully this helps you get started if you haven't already, or reaffirms what route you're going down if you're already on this path. So choose the greens wherever possible, and away we go. That'd be interesting to know if everyone's still here and they haven't switched off and gone to get a cup of tea. If you put in the chat, which route are you going down? Are you going clients or prospects? We won't do it for all of it, but I just would like to know clients or prospects. You can just do C or P, save typing the whole thing out. Thank you, John. Yeah, Marie, love it. Oh, you were listening. Gold star for Marie. Dual thinking, not binary thinking. Cool. And it makes sense. I think if I was starting out with this, I would go clients first because they already know, like, and trust you. So it's going to be an easier thing to do. Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Has anybody got any questions? I think before we get into this as well, I think that going back to what you want to achieve is really important to answer. So what are you looking to achieve with benchmarking? Is it to generate more revenue? Is it to generate more clients? Is it to offer value to your existing clients? Or is it to engage with clients to generate extra revenue as well? So what ultimately you're trying to achieve, and then that should hopefully guide you down the decision tree. Cool. How ready are you to take the necessary actions? This will require participation. Send out reports twice per year. That's fantastic. Great stuff, Leslie. How ready are you to take the necessary actions on a scale of 1 to 10? This is an easy one for you because the actions are the actions that are generated by what purpose you have for your benchmarking. So hopefully there should be like lots of 6, 7, 6, 9s, and 10s. Not telling you what to put, but hopefully that's good. 10. Oh, you gold star for Marie.
And John, look at John. John's on a 10 as well. Amazing
Awesome.
stuff.
Fantastic. Right. thing we like to do at Clarity is, yes, you said tomorrow. So this is all about action generating results. So it's just about getting started. It's about sticking your toe in the water and taking that first step. So hopefully we've encouraged you to do that. For those of you who are on benchmarking only or who are on solo or starter or standard, we have a very special offer for you, which is a free upgrade to Pro until the end of August. And then you get 50% off the upgrade difference. So depending on what you are now to what the upgrade is, you'll get that 50% off that for an additional 3 months. So effectively, for example, if you're on freemium at the moment, then they're obviously going to have the highest difference because they're starting at a freemium price. That will mean you will, in UK pounds, pay £1,500, which is 0 minus 1,000 by 50% by 3 over the 5-month period. So effectively, you're getting it for £300 a month. In addition to getting the upgrade, you get one-to-one support with either Steve or myself to be able to help you with a 90-day program. So you do need to invest 90 minutes a week to be able to be part of that program. And you can start that program anytime between now and September. So up to you as to when you want to start that 90-day implementation plan. And that's on Clarity in total rather than just Clarity benchmarking. So it's for benchmarking only, it's for freemiums, it's for solos, standards, starters. If that offer is of any interest to you, please let us know and we will sort it for you. Plus, you get the choice of a limited edition soft toy to be able to cuddle or share or throw around the office or do whatever you want with, your choice. You get that toy as well. So limited edition, obviously. So very good. Anything else, Steve?
No, and B, the bear's most popular so far. So I think that's the decision. That's the real decision you need to make today. Is it the owl or is it the bear? And the bear is the most popular. So they're the ones that are going to, the limited stock of these. So we've only done so many runs. So if it is the bear, I think you're going to need to get in early because they've been very, very popular. But the owl's super cute too.
Awesome. If anybody's got any further questions, we'll stay on as long as we need to. If you don't have any questions and you're all good, then it was great to see you and I hope to see you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time today. Have an amazing rest of the day and rest of the week. Thank you for those of you who have joined us in the early hours.